Hello, and welcome to day 4 of 7 Days of Hope. My name is Scott. I'm a member of the Hope team. I'm mostly doing the technology stuff, but I might have a word or two to say. And with us today, we have a number of guests. And the first person I'd like to introduce, however, would be Trina Paulus. Now, she really doesn't need an introduction because I think we all know who she is because she's the author of Hope for the Flowers, but she's so much than that. And during the course of today, this evening's broadcast, I think we'll be finding out a lot more about not only the book, Hope for the Flowers, but Trina as well. And I know that Trina will be bringing out some of the special things in terms of our guests. But first of all, Trina has a few words for you.
As we start this, I'm just grateful that you came and are spending your time with us. And also, I want to reach out during this coronavirus cocooning that the world is in, plus those who can't cocoon, those in India having to walk to their homes at much distance, or who don't have homes here or in India to even go to be inside for, and all of those caring for us all around the world so that we can be in our cocoons and stay safe. And I hope you are able to do that. And if you're suffering or know people who are suffering, that somehow the world can give out some compassion. And that is the idea of these 7 days, that we learn to hope and we learn to use this precious time to prepare ourselves to build the new world that's coming, which will be a world where we can help everybody have enough food so that their immune system gets strong so they don't get sick in the first place, and that we could reach out and share with each other and not climb any more pillars. Okay, so Scott, back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Trina. Well, we'd like to introduce a couple of other people who are our very special guests. And first person I'd like to introduce is Scott Barry Kaufman. He is the notorious SBK. Could you please wave to the audience, Scott? Great, thank you. And the next person I'd like to introduce is the singer-songwriter Gabby the artist. So it's your turn. And finally, there is another member of the Hope team. And I'd just like to say that we are so organized behind the scenes and things have been so smooth and we've just had so many different elements that have kept in, pretty good shape because of this next person who just is keeping me sane and keeping us all on track. Marisol, I know that you've got some important things to share to begin with before we really get underway. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
You know what? Teamwork makes the dream work. And we really work really well as a team. And I appreciate everyone. We even have a guy working behind the scenes on an incredible website we're going to hopefully unveil to you on Sunday. So stay tuned. Make sure you come back. I just want to let you know now the way that we're going to talk to Trina is through chat. So some of you are joining us on YouTube and some of you are joining us on our live event page. If you're on our live event page, you just want to set your name. At the bottom right-hand corner of that chat, there's a set name. You're going to set your name in the temporary, put your name in, and we'll be able to chat. Trina will ask you questions. You may have her ask questions of her, and we'll just have a nice little dialogue. It's very relaxed. We're just here really to share this time with you. And speaking of this time, it's a stressful time for so many of us. And so before we start our program, the one thing we want to do is just breathe. Go ahead, Scott. Hello, fellow Hopers, family, friends, and Hope Revolutionaries. It's Marisol. Welcome to the 7 Days of Hope. I'm part of a wonderful Hope team. We've been working hard with Trina behind the scenes, and we hope you have a wonderful time tonight. Or today, it could be today, depending on where you are in the world, right? But we're so happy that you've joined us. Thank you for trusting us with this time together. Before we go on to our live presentation, and I'm sorry you might have to put up with this few minutes every night, but I want to bring us into state. I want us to all just take a moment to just relax our bodies and stand still and just acknowledge however we feel. However we feel, just acknowledge that. And then let's take a deep breath, just a deep inhale. But when we take that breath, let it be the breath of hope. So let's take that breath together. And we're going to hold for 3. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to release whatever cares, whatever things we need to let go. We're just going to release it as we exhale that breath. And we're going to do it 2 more times. We're going to inhale that breath of hope. And we're going to hold it for 1, 2, 3. And on the exhale, we're going to just release whatever we need to release and let go, whatever we need to let go. And 1 more time, breathe in that breath of hope. And breathe out whatever we have to release. And when you're ready to get back into the room, we are ready for you. Welcome and enjoy the 7 Days of Hope.
Chapter 4 of Hope for the Flowers. And what's happened before is what we've met Stripe, a little caterpillar who eats and eats and eats and eats and looks for more. And he finally sees a caterpillar pillar. And all these other caterpillars are rushing toward it, and they're all jumping on. But the top is so cloudy that they can't see what's at the top, but it must be good because everyone's going there. So Stripe jumps on, and it's pretty bad. And he's climb over others, or it's be climbed on, and so he keeps climbing until one day he meets a yellow caterpillar. And after talking to her, they go a little bit more, and he finds she's blocking his way up. So it's him or her, and he steps on her head. And then she looks at him, and that changes things for him. So then he's sorry, and she just wants to go down, and he does too. So they make a big ball, and they're climbed over by all the others, and they end up at the bottom of the pillar. So then they have a really good time romping around and loving each other and hugging and hugging and hugging until one day Stripe feels it's not enough either. So he goes to the pillar and he decides he just has to get back on. And so he leaves her because she knows it's not the right thing to do, even though she doesn't know what is the right thing to do. So that's where we're picking up with chapter 4. Chapter 4. Yellow was desolate without Stripe. She crawled daily to the pile looking for him and returned home at night sad, but half relieved that she never saw him. If she had, she feared she might plunge after him, knowing that she shouldn't. She felt like doing something, anything, rather than this uncertain waiting. What in the world do I really want? She sighed. It seems different every few minutes, but I know there must be more. Finally, she became numb and wandered away from everything familiar. One day, a gray-haired caterpillar, hanging upside down on a branch, surprised her. He seemed caught in some hairy stuff. "You seem in trouble," she said. "Can I help?" "No, my dear, I have to do this to become a butterfly." Her whole insides leapt. Butterfly. That word, she thought. "Tell me, sir, what is a butterfly?" "It's what you are meant to become. It flies with beautiful wings and joins the earth to heaven. It drinks only nectar from the flowers and carries the seeds of love from one flower to another. Without butterflies, the world would soon have few flowers." "It can't be true," gasped Yellow. How can I believe there's a butterfly inside when all I see is a fuzzy worm? How does one become a butterfly? She asked pensively. You must want to fly so much that you are willing to give up being a caterpillar. You mean to die? Asked Yellow, remembering the 3 who fell out of the sky. Yes and no, he answered. What looks like you will die, but what's really you will still live. Life is changed, not taken away. Isn't that different from those who die without ever becoming butterflies? And if I decide to become a butterfly, said Yellow hesitantly, what do I do? Watch me, I'm making a cocoon. It looks like I'm hiding, I know, but a cocoon is no escape. It's an in-between house where the change takes place. It's a big step, since you can never return to caterpillar life. During the change, it will seem to you or to anyone who might peek that nothing is happening. But the butterfly is already becoming. It just takes time. And there's something else. Once you are a butterfly, you can really love. The kind of love that makes new life. It's better than all the hugging caterpillars can do. Oh, let me go and get Stripe, Yellow said. But she sadly knew he was too far into the pile to possibly reach. Don't be sad, said her new friend. If you change, you can fly. And show him how beautiful butterflies are. Maybe he will want to become one too. Yellow was torn in anguish. What if Stripe comes back and I'm not there? What if he doesn't recognize my new self? Suppose he decides to stay a caterpillar. At least we can do something as caterpillars. We can crawl and eat. We can love in some way. How can 2 cocoons get together at all? How awful to get stuck in a cocoon. How could she risk the only life she knew when it seemed so unlikely she could ever be a glorious winged creature? What did she have to go on? Seen another caterpillar who believed enough to make his own cocoon, and that particular hope which had kept her off the pillar and leapt within her when she heard about butterflies. The gray-haired caterpillar continued to cover himself with silky threads. As he wove the last bit around his head, he called, "You'll be a beautiful butterfly. We're all waiting for you." And Yellow decided to risk for a butterfly. For courage, she hung right beside the other cocoon and began to spin her own. Imagine, I didn't even know I could do this. That's some encouragement that I'm on the right track. If I have inside me the stuff to make cocoons, maybe the stuff of butterflies is there too. That's the end of this chapter. Thank you, Thais. Thank you for your music. It's just lovely, and it's especially lovely today. And it's the first time I'm hearing it is while we're broadcasting, really. I'd like to really spend some time talking about this chapter. It's the heart of the matter. It tells the secret of what we're supposed to be. And the part that's so important is a part that goes so fast. I'm not sure people really notice it very much. If I'd have to choose one section in the whole book to say what enables Yellow to get the secret, and therefore enables Stripe to get the secret, and enables then the whole pillar to come tumbling down, it's this page right here. This little humble page. One day, a gray-haired caterpillar hanging upside down on a branch surprised her. He seemed caught in some hairy stuff. You seem in trouble, she said. Can I help? No, my dear, I have to do this to become a butterfly. She stopped her own search. She was determined to try to find something, and she found this creature wrapped in some hairy stuff, and she stopped her search and asked if she could help. And that unlocked the story. And I think of this as the great Grail quest. The Grail was the big medieval story about the brave knights that were so strong and noble, and they kept looking for the Grail castle to get the Grail cup back for their country, to make peace in the world. And so they passed this suffering Fisher King. And they just asked him, which way to the Grail Castle? How do you get there? And they didn't ask, what ails thee? What ails thee? You seem in trouble, she said. Can I help? And I'm hoping that all of us take time in our own search for our own purposes, which we have to be on, to take time when we are faced with the need of another to ask that question, can I help? You seem in trouble, can I help? So that's a very key thing, and I just wanted to mention it because it slips by very quickly in this book. It just moves very fast. So I'd be very interested to know what all my people on screen with me here, you can't see them all until they talk, but
Trina, I have Mama T who says uncertain change is what we are going through right now.
Well, I think this is an incredible chapter. Like this, I'm so honored to be here for this chapter because as we all are, we're going through this time where we're unsure of where we need to be, but like change is very scary. But the thing is, you see Yellow and she just follows her heart. Even when she didn't have the words to explain why she couldn't go with Stripe, she continued to follow her heart. And change is, we don't know what's on the other side, but we have to, if our heart and our intentions are in the right place, we have to really just trust that journey. And that courage that she had is inspiring because it's the courage that we all need. We all need to really get through times like this. And we just got to trust and believe that we are where we are supposed to be.
We have
Scott
two
BK.
Scotts with us today. We've got Scott S. and Scott BK. So
It's
go ahead,
true.
Scott.
Alan Watts, one of my favorite philosophers, said there's a contradiction in wanting to be perfectly secure in a universe whose very nature is momentariness and fluidity. And the mathematician John Allen Paulos wrote that uncertainty is the only certainty there is, and knowing how to live with uncertainty is the only security. And I really like those quotes. There's a Polish psychiatrist, Kazimierz Dabrowski, who's Polish, who I really like, and he has a theory called positive disintegration theory, which I always think about whenever I read Hope for the Flowers. I think of Dabrowski's theory of positive disintegration. Dabrowski's theory it's very complex and it has a lot of elements to it. But in essence, it argues that in order to really grow and to really become our ideal self, we often have to go through a period of personality disintegration where we almost don't even know who we are anymore. We don't, we lose this center of our being, as some people would phrase it. And, when you were reading that story and you were talking about the question of like, will I die if I become a butterfly? And no, the best part of you will survive. Well, that's exactly the positive disintegration process is we all have an ideal self, but often we can't move towards that self until we let other certain things go. And I think this is a really great opportunity for people to learn how to manage uncertainty in their lives, use develop the skill, you go to the gym to lose weight. Well, spend the next couple weeks or months to use the muscle of being at peace with the inherent uncertainty in their lives. Some people are acting as though this is the first time in their entire life that they realize the universe isn't certain. Well, there are a lot of people who have realized that much earlier in their lives before this moment. There are a lot of people who their whole lives, made from very low socioeconomic status, or not sure if they're going to get food on their head they're not sure if the ceiling is going to collapse above them, or if they're going to get food, are saying, yeah, I've dealt with uncertainty my whole life. And it's a really important skill, no matter wherever we're at this. So I would say one is really learning and how to practice that skill of just being with these uncomfortable emotions and not trying to whisk them away in any sort of way, because there's a paradoxical rebound effect. When you do that, it comes back. And also I would say have hope for the positive and faith in the positive disintegration process. It's a process, and you'll come out on the other side a butterfly. How exciting is that to think about as a possibility?
Super, super exciting. Trina.
May it be so. May it be so that we use this for positive good. I don't know if you've heard of the shock doctrine. It was a Naomi Klein book that was pretty powerful for me to understand. It's when something big happens, like 9/11 or like this, it can go in a couple of ways. It can go in a positive direction, or it could go in a negative direction. It could go in a way that we try to push ourselves back into the old way of doing things, with the inequality, with a lot of people at the bottom of the caterpillar pillar, and people crawling over each other to get to an unreal top. Or it can go in a different way, that we've simplified our lives. We learn to grow food. We learn to be kinder to each other. And we can change this world. And I still believe that. And if we don't, we're headed to the cliff. And so we're not going to talk so much about that right now. We're talking about the positive possibilities. And I'm so grateful both of you are here. And Scott, I'm so pleased to meet you. You reached out to me, I think, 8 years ago. And
even more than that, I would say. I would say actually maybe like 12 years ago or 15. It's crazy.
Why don't you tell some of that story? Because it's quite a priceless story. This man, I don't even want to give away the end of it, because the way you told the story, that to me was so precious. I want you to tell it again.
Scott, don't forget to tell your counterpart, Scott, when certain graphics should be visual.
You can put up the original visual right now. I mean, when I was very, very young, I had a learning disability. I had an auditory. There was a lot of fluid in my ears. First couple of years of my life, I was essentially deaf. And people thought I was really dumb and a slow learner. They thought I was a very slow learner. My mom has spent her whole life, spent my whole life volunteering for the homeless and collecting clothes and books to give out to the homeless. And I was in special education, and it was maybe third or fourth grade. And I was in the backseat of the car. We were heading to do one of the drives. I would go with my mom for these drives to hand things out. And this book fell out of the bag in the back seat of the car. And I remember just just even being attracted to the cover and the name. And I by the time we got to the, place where we're going to deliver the stuff, I finished the book and I was just, it changed my life. And even in that, that one single reading, it just was like, wow, I can go from this, maybe I'm in a cocoon right now because I really felt like very low self-esteem, at the time, very like I wasn't capable of much, and thought, wow, maybe there's a possibility here that someday I could, do something really good and not by not having to strive towards the standard route. I think what I got out of the book was that it was okay to take the offbeat path, and that in a lot of ways when you do that you end up with something more fulfilling anyway. So that's what I got out of it in third grade. And it was a really profound moment for me. I eventually I still was in special education. I was kept in special education up to ninth grade, and there was a teacher who took me aside, a special ed teacher who had never seen me before. She saw my frustration. She took me aside. She said, "Why are you still here? You look like you're capable of doing more." And I realized, and no one's ever asked me that question before. And I felt in my gut, this was my butterfly moment. I just it all came back. I was like, this is it. So I went quickly, why am I here? And I scheduled a meeting with the school psychologists and the administrators and everything, and told them I was going to leave. I was going to peace out of special education. And they had no one's ever done that before. No student has tried to break out of special ed by themselves. And so they didn't know what to do with the situation, but they let me out on a trial basis. And once I got out, I just discovered I loved learning and I loved lots of things. And I wasn't good at everything, but I really just loved doing as much as I possibly could.
I remember your story, that story of someone coming into the desk while you were on an untimed test as part of your thing. And that's when this teacher told you. And when you got out, you had a grandfather who was a cello player, a master. Right. And that you learned the cello so that when you got then through the summer and got back into school, you were a famous, wonderful cello player. So going from special ed.
I don't know if I became famous, but no, but you're right. You're right. My grandfather was a cellist with the Philadelphia Orchestra, and I thought that might be my ticket to showing that I was smart after I got to special ed. So that summer before the first full semester there, I was out of special ed. I asked my Gramps to teach me how to play cello. I called him Gramps, and I must have practiced 8-9 hours a day that summer. And when we in the school orchestra. When it started up and I was out of special ed, it was the most exhilarating feeling in the world to have gone from being in low expectation environment to being in an environment where the conductor, everyone was expecting something good to come out of us. And I remember I had my cello there, and my grandfather created a version for me because I only had played for a summer. They've been playing since the other kids been playing since elementary school, so I played the first downbeat of everything so I could stay along. And then I quickly did move up the ranks. My senior year, I was legit a second cellist of the orchestra and got all the all-department music department award. I was actually in choir as well, so I sang opera and all that. So yeah, music was my way of showing I was smart, I think.
You are at the end of your high school, and you became a person who reached out to this doctor at Yale.
Well, that was in college, but even in high school, I was getting very good grades, and I wanted to study psychology, and I applied to Carnegie Mellon. I got rejected from their cognitive science program, but I was so determined to study psychology that I walked into their opera program at Carnegie Mellon and sang my heart out, and they accepted me on a partial scholarship for my vocal ability. And once I got to Carnegie Mellon, I went through a whole year of the voice major and then went to the psychology department and said, hey, I took a course in psychology and I really liked it. Who knew I'd like psychology so much? Do you think maybe I could be a minor in psychology? And, you start small. And they didn't even look at my transcript or, look to see what I had done. And they're like, sure, just sign this paper and you can be a minor in psychology. And I remember that was a really profound moment for me to really think, wow, I really want to help people find a pathway to get to where they want to go, even if they first didn't get it. And I think it's a big part of hope is finding, the multiple routes the subtitle of my book Ungifted is The Multiple Paths to Greatness. So that was a big thing, is that I transferred in through the back door, so to speak. And then the next semester I went back in again. I was like, hey, could I be a major in psychology? And they're like, yeah, whatever. It's not a big, it's interesting. Once you can show up to a place where there are high expectations for you, people don't tend to question. They don't say, what's your IQ score at age 11? They just assume I was smart enough because I was already there at Carnegie Mellon. That was a very profound moment for me. When I was in college, after I did do the psychology degree, I don't know exactly which story you're thinking about, but my dream when college was to study Robert Sternberg at Yale, who studies intelligence and has a redefinition of intelligence. And I reached out to him my senior year and I was like, I'll be your water boy. Like, can I go to Yale for a summer and like do anything you want for free? And I went there I spent a whole summer. I was his intern. I didn't do that well. I didn't do Yale level on my GREs. I to this day I can't stand standardized tests. But he fought for me with the admissions committee, and I did get into Yale. I did manage to get a PhD from Yale in cognitive psychology, and I proposed a new theory of intelligence in my dissertation, which eventually turned into that book that Trina's holding up.
Yes.
I'm going to screen capture that. Yeah.
And it's an autographed copy to me these many years ago when we first met. And we first met when
you still have the autographed copy?
Oh, yes, I do. So,
what did I say? What did I say to you?
well, when you're talking, I'll open it up and repeat it again, and see it again.
I'm curious.
He became this friend. He reached out to me. And if anybody wants to ever see some of my earlier videos, they're in response to Scott asking me the most serious questions I've ever been asked in a whole sheet of it. We decided I couldn't answer those questions like that. That included my experience of existential angst and all other sorts of other big, heavy-duty questions that were really like a whole book. But we did some, and you can kind of tell what the ones they possibly are because they were in a red sweatshirt. So that Una took of me. But Scott has gone on to do teaching in NYU and a number of other places. And his specialness is working with understanding rare and special minds. And
I like that phrasing.
And very beautiful, like Asperger's and people.
Beautiful minds. That's the name of my column.
What's that? Say it again. Why don't you
Beautiful Minds is the name of my column. Yeah.
And your column is in Psychology Today?
It's now Scientific American.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You can find him there.
I would like to move it on to Gabby because we're running out of a little bit of time here. So Trina, I don't know if you want to say something to Gabby first.
Gabby, I've known Gabby in a very different mode. She was a little kid and she grew up around me and was in church with me occasionally. And she was just a little baby kid. And now she's this big girl. An artist in her own right, Gabby the artist. And I think Gabby, you tell about yourself. I think that the stories you tell about yourself are better than anything I could tell about you.
Definitely. First, I wanted to say the notorious SBK, like, you are just so inspirational, and
thank you.
It's amazing the ripple effect that Hope for the Flowers has. It's so inspiring. And so before I start, I wanted to send love and prayers to everyone going through, like, we're all going through this pandemic, and a lot of my friends have lost people that they loved. And back in 2018, I lost my father. And with that, I lost a lot of things, but there are some things I learned, and love never dies and love is the answer. When I was in my darkest place, like love has brought me back, and that memory and that love. So if you have lost someone or if you know someone, just really send love and prayers, and we got to get through this. And I guess that's going to bring me to another part. I got a really bad artistic block. I wasn't really able to make anything, and it felt like I was taking up space. And I know some of you relate to that feeling. And I remember I was trying to discover, although I was down, there was something in me that was still wanting me to try to learn who I am all over again. And one day I just started painting again. And Scott, if you can put up the video of the painting I did, that might be a good one. But
Sure.
I was painting and I was just letting so much loose. And through that, I was able to write music again, and I was able to create music again. And it was a really bad block. I didn't know where I was in a situation where, kind of like Yellow and Stripe, like I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was coming next, but you just have to trust that process. Regardless of how hard things get, you just have to know that you are here for a reason. And basically, another thing, before I get to, that's one of my paintings. That's the first one I did, actually.
I think Scott has the video now.
I do have the video.
But she doesn't care one bit about me.
That video was such an example of me just exploding with what I had inside of me and not judging myself, because we tend to be our worst critics. Our inner critic is like the worst critic, and it tells us not to do certain things. And I just was just completely myself when I was painting, and it really sparked something in me, and that we all have in us. We have this fire in us, and we just got to let loose sometimes. We have to go with the flow of life, regardless of what is being thrown at us. We have to just keep pushing. And that's why I'm so honored to be on this specific chapter. The song that I'm going to introduce, I want to talk a little bit about it before we show it. And basically the idea behind it is basically what Yellow was going through. We have our inner doubts, and a lot of the times that's louder than anything else we can hear. But there is this voice of hope if we choose to tune into it, and we choose to think about the things we're grateful for instead of the things that we lack. And this song, I actually wrote it years ago. I wrote it a few years ago, and I guess I didn't really understand it back then. But right now, in this very moment, it resonates so much with me, because it is reminding me, and I hope it reminds you, that we have this voice in us to be extraordinary if we choose to listen to it. And there's those whispers of hope, those whispers of encouragement, and you can do whatever you put your mind into. You have to believe into yourself. As SBK was saying, he found a way to believe in himself despite all the doubters that have been around him. He found a way to see the inner amazing that he is, and each and every one of you have that as well. So I hope that when you listen to this song, you can feel where I was coming from. Hello, all you beautiful butterflies. My name is Gabby the Artist, and today I will be sharing with you an original song called Whispers. I pray that it inspires some hope in you. We have to the right of me, Hope for the Flowers by our wonderful Trina Paulus. Trina, we love you so much. You have inspired so many of us, and you've just influenced us into wanting a better life for ourselves and having hope in our own hearts, and that is priceless. So we thank you so very much. So I hope you guys like the song. I'm going to get it right into it. so much.
Have been released to Gabby.
But yes, that's not released yet, but it's I'm working on an album that really just puts my emotions out there, and I'm on a journey as all of you are, and I'm trying to find myself, and this album is definitely it's kind of funny because this is a lot of old music, but I lost my father 2 years ago, and it's like I lost myself all over again, but this music, these lyrics that I wrote years ago has been bringing me back to who I am, and even better because I'm learning from the ups and downs, and I'm grateful for everything, and thank you guys so much for having me here today. I'm so grateful.
We're getting so many people very impressed here in the chat, and we've got folks from North Carolina, we've got people from Texas, we've got people coming in from all over the country here, and they all really appreciate everything. Scott, you said,
Really?
I've been putting the audience in as much because Scott PK. Because you guys have been so engaging, and I think the audience has really been also just wrapped up in what you're saying, because you're such an inspiration, both of you. And it's just, and Trina, of course, as always, we can just learn from you. You have so much experience and so much knowledge to share that you brought us all here together, and so many different people, all these guests. You know, I'm so blessed. Scott and I are so blessed to be on this team and be here day after day and just hear this just amazing thing that is just really coming together. And one of my favorite quotes is from The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and he says, when you want something bad enough, the universe conspires to help you achieve it. And I think that's what's been happening. The universe has been conspiring to just bring this 7 days of hope together. And with all of you participating and being out here supporting us every night and just being here to share with us, we just so appreciate all of you.
It's
Yes.
a beautiful idea, and I just feel so honored to be a part of this. And I just can I talk about how Trina just randomly, it felt random to me, just like called me on FaceTime. I haven't talked to her in like years and years, and I had just, and I kid you not, I had just changed the background of my TV because you can set like a screensaver thing on to butterflies. I just changed it to butterflies, and then I get a FaceTime call from Trina Paulus. I'm like, really, God? Did that just really just happen? It's amazing.
It's the third FaceTime I've ever made, and when I looked him up, his number was not there, so I kind of randomly hit the FaceTime.
You hit my email address, is what you did. Yeah.
And by golly, he answered. I was thinking what a perfect person he would be for this whole time of troubles. And Scott, we cannot stop this until you tell us something about your new book, Transcendence.
Oh,
Yes,
I can hold it up. Transcend. Well, this one is actually this is where I'm at these days, because Ungifted was about intelligence, and how we have too many kids that are falling between the cracks because we have a very standardized notion of what it means to be intelligent. But this book really even sings to my soul more, because it's about how we can all self-actualize in our own direction and become our whole being. You know, in Ungifted, I focused on intelligence, which is one slice of us. But this book is about all of us. How can we bring all of ourselves to the table to realize our full potential? So that's where so this is where I've come in the 10 years I've known you, Trina, from intelligence to self-actualization.
And I'm just grateful for everybody being here. And I think it's such a wonderful thing to have these two people sharing. I feel like my problem is I don't feel I need to say anything when you have people like this on screen that who bring their own messages so powerfully to us about how we can dare hope in this time, and how we can go forward, and how we can not climb that pillar, but go deep into our sides and find out that revolution of life, the revolution of love, that revolution that's interior, that any revolution or any change of government has to have, or it won't work. It'll just be the circle that goes round and round and round and round and round, and not become the butterfly that we're each meant to be. And I love the idea that there's room in the sky for all the butterflies. There's not room on the top of the pillar for anybody very long, but there's room, infinite room in the sky for all of us if we become that. And then we can do that wonderful thing of caring, of fulfilling our purpose, which is not just to look pretty as butterflies, but to carry the love from one flower to the other. And the flowers can't fly, but we can carry the love from one flower to the other and be rewarded in all kinds of ways we don't dream by their sweet nectar. All the people we meet in our life that God puts us into our way to meet. What a privilege life can be if we see it like that. So I want to thank you for coming.
Oh, what a gift to the world you are, Trina Paulus.
Oh no, Scott, that's SK, that's enough. Enough out of that. We're all gifts to the world. We're all gifted, Scott.
Oh yes, but that's true, and you're part of it too.
Yes, so are you, and so is Gabby, and so is
We
Mark.
love you, Trina.
We love you.
Trina, Thais is saying to let you know that she's deeply welcome when you thanked her, and she thanks you so much. She's very excited to be part of the project. Thais A. Brown is the person who made that beautiful music for the chapter readings, and she's also a cousin of ours. She's my husband's first cousin, so it was just a blessing to have her on board. She does this kind of thing for the schools. She's a music teacher, and her music is just beautiful, and it was just, like I said, the way the universe is bringing things together. I made one phone call and she said, oh my goodness. And I didn't even, it just all came together. It was really, it's just really wonderful. And speaking of coming together, I just want to say, we ended yesterday with our Hope for the Flower song. And as we were putting these 7 days together, Trina said, I'd love to have a sing-along. And I was like, Trina, I'm not so sure about a sing-along. And it actually was so beautiful to have the song. I mean, I just didn't know if we could have it in the middle of the show. But to have it at the trailer, there was so many of you enjoying it and singing along. And so we decided to end our segments with our Hope for the Flowers by the Porchistas. And we hope you will sing along. And we will see you tomorrow on this same channel at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And let your friends know where we are. We'd love for them to join. Thank you so much for joining the 7 Days of Hope. We'll see you tomorrow.
Without butterflies, the world will have few flowers. So grow your wings and fly. Feed the plants and float by the river, and we'll be here by your side.
Make great choices and take big risks if they're good for you and the rainforest. Sing really loud and don't be afraid. You are the stuff of which butterflies are made. Hope, hope, hope for the flowers. Transform, embrace, and realize your power. Los que necesitan para vivir. Hope for the flowers. Transform, embrace, and realize your power. Los que le necesitan para vivir. Sometimes the pile that everyone's climbing up seems like the shiniest thing. But look in the eyes of the others you've been stepping on and wake to the light of all beings. Hope, hope, hope for the flowers. Transform, embrace, and realize your power. El bosque le necesita para vivir. Hope for the flowers. Transform, embrace, and realize your power. El bosque le necesita para vivir. qu'elle est nécessite, pas la